Alrighty, guys. So, with the DCU continuing to head in, well, a positive direction, positive meaning it's continuing to go on, we are getting more and more details about different projects that are happening. Case in point, we've been getting a lot of, well, reports from these sources like Deadline, Variety, Hollywood Reporter about all these various projects that are in development, like Bane and Deathstroke and this, the Teen Titans movie and all that kind of stuff, in addition to all of the previously announced films like Booster Gold and Swamp Thing, which we got some updates on from James Mangold. But another film that's actually, it almost seems like it's being fast-tracked because I guess James Gunn, who, if you guys don't remember, earlier on said his philosophy with DC was going to be that he was only going to greenlight films if he was happy with their scripts. And lo and behold, it seems like he's very happy with the script for this upcoming Clayface movie, because Clayface has been fast-tracked. Remember in that original DCU announcement, right, where he was giving the initial slate, or at least a group of projects that was going to release in the first little chunk that he was calling Gods and Monsters? You know, there was Swamp Thing, Booster Gold, Brave and the Bold, the Paradise Lost series, Lanterns, but nowhere in there was Clayface, right? The assumption was Superman and then Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, and those are the first two films coming up. But then right after that is going to be Clayface, and Clayface is now, so it's being written by horror. Legend seems like a little bit of an exaggeration, but horror, movie director staple in the Hollywood industry, Mike Flanagan, who developed Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor. He did Dr. Sleep, the sequel to The Shining. So he's been doing a lot of horror stuff. And I think he recently described the film as a sort of horror tragedy, sort of a tragic protagonist, because Clayface is one of the most notable Batman villains in the Rogues Gallery. So it's interesting, the theme of gods and monsters, right? Clayface is also a very interesting character because in live action, I think we've seen some iterations of Clayface in live action in the TV shows, but nothing really in the movies. And so Clayface is an interesting character because, as seen in the Harley Quinn show, which he's more of a comedic character, voiced by Alan Tudyk, and also voiced by Alan Tudyk actually in Creature Commandos, where he, I guess, canonically is now in the DCU. And I'm presuming that that's the iteration of the character that will be in this upcoming Clayface movie. But he's a shapeshifter, right? So when he's not a shapeshifter, he's just kind of a big lumpy blob of clay, and so I guess they're gonna have to CG animate that, and then it's gonna be interesting to see what versions of the character, whether or not Clayface has a persona, that is gonna be played by a famous actor, or that if he's just the whole thing throughout the movies, he's gonna be played by a lot of different actors. But anyways, that's so just setting the scene here that this is going to be a more horror tragedy forward kind of movie, and it's going to be releasing in fall of 2026 as of right now. And now we have a report from Deadline that says we are getting pretty close to finding a director, and the director choices here, I think, reinforce the direction that they're going in. So according to this report from Deadline, the two, they're not saying frontrunners, but they're saying in the mix, right? So it's not like these two directors are going to be the only two choices to direct this Clayface movie, but it's Truth or Dare's Jeff Wadlow and Speak No Evil's James Watkins. Speak No Evil was, I think, the remake that had James McAvoy this past fall. And yeah, I mean, both of those are kind of horror thriller sort of films. And the Deadline article also says, quote, at the same time, there's buzz that the casting process has begun. Once a filmmaker is attached to DC, and said director will mull on the actors being assessed, and then whoever is chosen as director will weigh in on the casting choices. That's pretty standard for all this Hollywood affair. And then it goes on to talk about Mike Flanagan. The other interesting note, though, before we talk about my thoughts on this, just really quickly, is that it seems like the Clayface film so it's going to be produced by James Gunn and Peter Safran, but it's also going to be produced by Matt Reeves and Lynn Harris, who are I suppose, I mean, Matt Reeves obviously, but Lynn Harris as well, are shepherding the Batman universe. And then obviously it's going to be developed by Mike Flanagan. So as of right now, the assumption was, and I still think the assumption is, that this DC Studios film, Clayface, is going to be part of the DCU. It just makes sense. But I'm more curious almost of what Matt Reeves' involvement is in these DCU films. Is he helping to shepherd the story of the DCU as well? It seemed pretty clear that the Batman universe was separate from the DCU, but it's just kind of an interesting thing that, Matt Reeves is getting his hands involved in this as well. I think the Arkham Asylum series that was originally going to be part of the Batman universe is now going to be, a part of the DCU. So, and it's going to be still produced by Matt Reeves. So we'll see. We'll see where we go from here. But anyways, these directing choices, I think, make clear that this film has a very clear iteration. Just like how James Mangold, when he talked about his Swamp Thing movie, was like, yeah, this is going to be a sort of a gothic horror sort of tragedy as well. this is going to be a more horror thriller kind of tragedy with a protagonist like Clayface, and protagonist in air quotes, because we'll see how far they push this into. Is he a villain? Is he going to be a sort of a Venom kind of anti-hero, or is he just going to be a misunderstood protagonist? We'll have to see about that. But guys, what do you think about the progress being made on this Clayface movie? Are you excited, first of all, for a Clayface movie, or is this a project where we're still in wait and see mode? Let me know in the comments down below.